Gustav Klimt is my all-time favorite artist because of the way that he incorporates different styles into his work and the way he kind of just blends fun colors together. I like how he has different colors. Especially love how he puts meaning into his work, and it's not obvious, it's quite hidden. It is due to this that the world during his time found him to be quite offensive, because a lot of his work would portray women in states of undress. One of those works I'm going to show you is called Hope 2, which portrays an expecting mother, and obviously she is in a state of undress, which is why they found it to be so offensive. I love this painting because I can see the tenderness that he was trying to portray through this. The way the mother is looking down at her pregnant belly and also looking down at the faces hidden in her clothing, which to me represent what her child could become. Klimt had an understanding and wanted to express that. He had a certain respect for mothers and how special they were. For the Mormon culture, I'm a Mormon, bodies are very sacred. They are very special. And so in art, when a body is shown as undressed, that can be crude and unsacred, profane in a sense. So it's hard to find that balance, to understand when something is sacred and when it's not. In art history, there's a lot of unclothed bodies. So when I started learning about art and seeing art where women were undressed or men were undressed, it was hard to figure out what was okay and what wasn't. And I want to kind of discuss that with you guys today, because to me, art is expression. And I think a lot of people, especially artists, would say that art is expression. An artist is trying to have a purpose that they're trying to get out to you, to touch you with. So my question is going to be, is there in art is there a difference between nudity and nakedness? They do sound very similar, but we're going to see if there's a difference today. And to do that, I want to go over some different art periods and see why artists did things a certain way, because if they do things a certain way, it is usually due to the art period that they're in. So the first one we're going to go over is the Renaissance period. This is Botticelli, and the Renaissance period focused a lot on going back to the Greek and Roman style, which meant they focused a lot on the body. And in this one, Venus does have a very unclothed body, but that is due to the Greek and Roman style, not anything else. She has what they would call an ideal body. And if you want to see more signs of a Greek and Roman style, you look at the way that they're standing. She's standing kind of like relaxed, bent knee, and that's a really big sign that they're relying on that Greek and Roman style. Another period is the Baroque period, and this one is amazing. This is Bernini. During the Baroque period, they focused a lot on detail, and they focused a lot on emotion and movement. They had finally figured it out, how to portray that realistically in sculpture. This is the abduction of Persephone, and they are both very undressed. They have a little bit of drapery, but not very much. This is very important, though, because as you look, this shows how tightly Hades is holding on to Persephone and how desperately she is trying to get away from him. And if she was wearing more clothing, I don't think we would understand that as much, and it wouldn't be as poignant to us. You can also see on his body, his sides, how tense he is, which shows the struggle that she's putting up. You can even see her pushing against his face, trying to get away. And there are even tears on her face if you look closely enough. The whole purpose of this sculpture isn't to have two naked bodies pressed against each other. It is to show a struggle and emotion and movement, and a lot of emotion. So remember that for the Baroque period, movement, emotion, and detail are important. In Renaissance, there's a lot of looking at the anatomy of the body. There's a reason for these. So let's give some definitions for naked and nudity. Let's say that naked is someone who just doesn't have clothing, because that is technically the definition, I think. Nudity in this sense is, we're going to say, is someone who is without clothing, but they have a purpose. There's a purpose for them being depicted that way. And we're going to look at some more works of art and see how those definitions kind of apply to each, because this is how I have learned to tell the difference. In this work, we have The Birth of Venus Again by Cabanel, and even though it is a very beautiful depiction, I can't really find a purpose behind this. When I look at her, she just seems like she's lying there with cute little babies flying around. I cannot find what he is trying to express, Cabanel, what he is trying to portray and give to me personally. So this one, I would say she is just naked. For this next one, this is Michelangelo's David. You could almost think the same thing, that he's just standing there naked, right? But if you look closely, and actually before that, this is the Renaissance period, so that means they're focusing on that Greek and Roman ideal, and they are trying to understand the body and to make it perfect. So he does have a very, very perfect body. His muscles are very defined, and he's very young. But if you look at his face, he's very apprehensive. And if you look at his hand, with the veins sticking out on it, he's gripping very tightly to a stone. And this shows emotion. And that this style is also known as the classical period, which means that they're kind of discovering emotion. So for this one, Michelangelo was trying to show us the feelings that David was feeling right before Goliath reached him, as he was standing there waiting for Goliath, which is, if you think about it, that would be kind of a scary feeling. This next one is going to be a little harder. This is another one of Klimt's, and I'm going to try to show you a little closer. And this one is more in the Art Nouveau area. Nouveau, I always say it wrong. And this one was found to be very offensive to the people that had commissioned it. He was commissioned to paint 3 works for a school, and when he gave these to them, they wouldn't put them up for years until Klimt finally gave them back their commission fee and took the paintings back himself. And as you look at it, it does seem a little bit dark, a little bit vulgar, I guess you could say. But if you understand what his purpose is, what he's trying to express, it becomes totally different. This was a while after his father and his brother had died, suddenly. And his whole style had changed, his painting style. He had gone from very classical work to stuff like this. And if you look at it very closely, the body that is kind of alone by itself is kind of emaciated and malnourished, which kind of makes it look dead. And it's floating above the woman, one of the only clothed women. There's 2 of them, I think. And there are other figures that are floating around as well that kind of, to me, kind of symbolizes spirits. And there's a skull in there as well. And it just kind of shows how sad he is, which changes the whole atmosphere to me. It doesn't seem like a dark, well, it's still a little dark, I guess, but it doesn't seem vulgar or obscene or offensive. It seems very sad. He's trying to express his grief for his family. So for this to me shows that it is not nakedness, it is just nudity. And I think that as you look at art and you kind of think of it that way, you'll be able to understand the difference and integrate it into your lives more, especially if you're like me, who is religious and strives to keep things that I feel are unclean out of my life. This helps me to actually see the body as more beautiful and to appreciate that gift from God. So I want to challenge you guys to see that as well, whether you're Christian or not. If you look at art, if you look and understand what the artist is trying to tell you, you will be touched in the way that they wanted you to. Their expression will come through to you.